All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. It is Tuesday. You know what that means. Time to do the wisdom of the Tao. Tuesday Tao. Reading from Dr. Wayne W. Dyer's Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life, ladies and gentlemen. And that's really what it's all about here and what we're all about here on this channel. It's finding and creating, finding the knowledge, and then through that knowledge, creating an awareness and an understanding to then create an ability to be able to, through the act or art of changing our thoughts, changing our perspectives, and our understanding of life and the world we find ourselves in order to change the quality of that life and the lives of those around us, of course, for the better, ladies and gentlemen, because it is very possible. And as we've seen throughout this series, ladies and gentlemen, and the previous 63 verses of the Tao Te Ching, that there is a way that we can have a new understanding and a new awareness and enlightenment, a knowledge, wisdom, the wisdom of the Tao, the wisdom of the ages, ladies and gentlemen. But before we dive into today's lesson, the 64th verse of the Tao Te Ching, which is all about living by being here now and the power of being in the moment, which is a common topic when it comes to spirituality and philosophy and positive psychology. It's something that often comes up on Matt's show, Matt Belair. But, ladies and gentlemen, it feels like I haven't done a video for a month. I believe I took Valentine's Day off, so hopefully everybody had a good Valentine's Day, regardless of whether or not you have a significant other, but hopefully you can take that day to expand your feeling of love for either that significant other or for yourself, ladies and gentlemen, because we all need to work on loving ourselves a bit more as well. I love the old saying, treat yourself, but I don't know how really old that saying is. Got our tea today, and the tea says, know that you are a child of the universe, ladies and gentlemen, and that we are a part of it. And so also, I decided to take last week off because I had a whole bunch of stuff to take care of. Also, I was able to successfully create a podcast, the Chase Corrington podcast, that should be hooked up to Spotify. So I'll be on Spotify now with an audio version as a podcast, as well as a video podcast from what we're doing here on YouTube and these recordings that I do through Zoom. So that'll be cool, ladies and gentlemen. If you like to listen to the audio on the go and you prefer your Spotify over YouTube, I actually don't even have a Spotify, but I'm creating content for it, ladies and gentlemen. So that's the secret. That's the secret. So I'm glad to have that accomplished so I can start going into the old database of all the videos that were done in the past and begin to, to upload all of those so I can clear out some space so that we can continue to do these videos, because videos take up quite a bit of space. And when you don't have a million, terabytes or whatever, you tend to run out of space. And I'm nostalgic about these things because each of these is its own special time, and it's a time in my life, and it's an extrapolation and expansion of what I'm going through and what I'm trying to learn for myself as well as teach to others about this spirituality, this positive psychology, and this awareness and this ability that we can create to be able to have a much happier, a much more peaceful, more vibrant, more joyful, all of these things, more fulfilling life by choice and through action, ladies and gentlemen, because you can't just sit around waiting for life to change for you. I'm just sitting here like eventually something's going to happen. That may happen for some people every now and then, and it may take 1,000 years. We just don't have 1,000 years this time around, ladies and gentlemen. So we need to actually proactively go out and seek to discover the wisdom of the ages and the wisdom of the Tao and many other forms of wisdom, ladies and gentlemen, so that we can increase the quality of our life. So today's reading from, once again, Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life, Living the Wisdom of the Tao by Dr. Wayne W. Dyer. The 64th verse of the Tao Te Ching, and Wayne titles his little section here as extrapolation on this verse, Living by Being Here Now. The 64th verse of the Tao Te Ching begins by saying, what is at rest is easily managed. What is not yet manifest is easy to prevent. The brittle is easily shattered, and the small is easily scattered. Act before things exist. Manage them before there is disorder. Remember, a tree that fills a man's embrace grows from a seedling. A tower 9 stories high starts with 1 brick. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. See, so there's that classic line. Here in the 64th verse of the Tao Te Ching, it continues by saying, act and destroy it, grasp it and lose it. The sage does not act, and so is not defeated. He does not grasp, and therefore does not lose. People usually fail when they are on the verge of success. So give as much care at the end as at the beginning. Then there will be no failure. The sage does not treasure what is difficult to attain. He does not collect precious things. He learns not to hold on to ideas. He helps the 10,000 things find their own nature, but does not venture to lead them by the nose. And that was the 64th verse of the Tao Te Ching, ladies and gentlemen. That one has got to be one of the more deep and powerful ones, I think, that I've read yet. At least that I can remember, because this one covers so many of these paradoxes that we deal with in life, and so many of the struggles that we end up dealing with by forcing and pushing and striving rather than allowing, arriving and being here. And this idea that what is at rest is easily managed. So what can, we really need to try to apply each of these lines into our life. But that is for, that is why you should expand the description below the video, get the book for yourself, to have it on your shelf for reference, so that you can do that, in your own time. And you can study along here with me through the rest of this series. But it's like, then the next line goes, what is not yet manifest is easy to prevent. See, now I'm really interested and mostly fascinated in this ability to manifest, the secret of lucky people, or the science of lucky people, I like to call it. And we've explained what I mean by that before, but simply there are lucky people that seem to be, in the right place at the right time, or things just work out for them. But I think there is a science to this that they might not even know that they're doing. And, the keys to manifesting, or creating our experience through intention with an alignment with the universe and all the aspects of the physical and the non-physical opposite polarities of the force, or, of reality. And by using all this to create our lives, ladies and gentlemen, what some people would call real magic. The brittle is easily shattered, the next line says. The small is easily scattered. So those each having a deep meaning as well. Act before things exist. See, that's another reference to this manifesting here. And I think he's getting to the idea of not manifesting the things that you don't want to create on accident. And so we need to become aware. It says, what is at rest is easily managed. This is just how I'm taking this. So if you can get yourself to a peaceful meditative state, a state of rest, then you can begin to discover what it is that needs to be managed. And you can manage it more easily in this restful state rather than, the constant functioning state, especially in modern society, that we find ourselves in, the striving to get more money and be more successful and, make the payments and survive, and all of these things that keep us out of this contemplative, peaceful, easily manageable state of rest. It doesn't really give us time to think for ourselves. And when we can begin to think for ourselves, we can realize the things that we are creating in our lives that we don't really want to continue creating. And so the next line, this is just the first two lines of the Tao, ladies and gentlemen. This is where my mind goes. So this is why you're here, I guess. But what is not manifest yet is easy to prevent if you are in this state of rest. What is at rest is easily managed. What is not yet manifest is easy to prevent, I think, if you are in the state of the first line. Because the brittle, that which has no firm foundation, is easily broken or shattered, and the small things are easily spread apart and scattered away. Act before things exist, manage them before there is disorder. Remember, he's talking about creation here, I think, and living, like Wayne says, by being here now. We'll get to that in just a sec. I'm extrapolating on this 64th verse of the Tao Te Ching. And so talking about this ability of creation and being cautious and noticing what it is you don't want to create that you are, because whether or not we think we're manifesting, we've been doing it our entire lives. And when you look at all the things that you've attracted in your life, you realize that's odd, that it is something that I did through my own process of imaginations and feelings and emotions and actions in the world. And then you find yourself wherever you are, and that's just fine. You don't judge that. You just realize that there is a new awareness. And you go, I can see that I have done this now. And before, I did not know that I could do this. And so therefore, I'm not to be judged on the fact that I have lived my life and thought and felt in a way that has brought or attracted the things that I have in my life to me through a, more universal sense. But I can begin to adjust the direction of my intention. Now, this is really difficult stuff, ladies and gentlemen. This takes years of practice, of schooling the mind while you're living your daily life, especially if you're out here in society, like we all, like most of us are, I'm sure. I doubt anybody watching this video is living, in a temple or some secluded place somewhere. But hopefully, if you are, thank you so much for joining us. Fascinating. But he's saying here, after talking about this, being careful of what you're going to manifest, and you can manage it more easily in this state of awareness. Remember that a tree, so something that can grow to be what we know of as a great tree, a tree that fills a man's embrace. See, I didn't think it was going to go that way. He's not talking about tree huggers, ladies and gentlemen, although hug a tree and see if you get any kind of communication from nature. or see if you make somebody else laugh. Either way, it's for fun, ladies and gentlemen, and it's for a connection, because we need a deeper connection to nature, but that's not where we were going. A tree that fills a man's embrace. So we're talking about a big tree, ladies and gentlemen, a big tree, the size big enough that you can't wrap your arms around it, grows from a seedling. Grows from a seedling. So this is going back to this idea of manifesting. And what is at rest is easily managed, and what is not yet manifest is easy to prevent. So trees manifest just like we do here in this world. We come out of it. And so a tower 9 stories high starts with 1 brick. And so, once again, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Act and destroy. And then it gets into the paradoxical section of the opposite nature of trying to force all of this process that we just discussed about accidentally creating, managing that which, our mind and our emotions randomly create and bring into our life. And there's paradoxes to understanding that. He says the sage helps the world, the 10,000 things, everything that we find in our physical environment, to find their own nature, but does not venture to lead them by the nose, does not force them to do so, in other words. So let's now dive into what Dr. Wayne Dyer has to say about this most fascinating, very magical 64th verse of the Tao Te Ching. Living by being here now. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, Wayne says, quote unquote. He continues saying it is the most famous line of the entire Tao Te Ching. I'm sure it's probably the one that you know the most out of all of these quotes that we've come across here in the previous 63, now 64 verses. It is quoted so often because it encourages us to avoid procrastination and just begin from where we are right here, right now. And I'll add, focusing on how the small leads to larger results. I believe that's what the last verse, yes, we did, was all about. Living without difficulties by focusing on the small. Wow. It has been a while, ladies and gentlemen. It's been like almost 2 weeks. Yeah, I think it has. Now, so great to be back, and I'm so glad you're back here. Hope you got yourself some tea and are comfy and are getting value out of this, because this is why I do this. Now, a tiny seed, Wayne continues, planted and nurtured, grows into a forest. A marathon begins by taking that first stride. In my opinion, the German poet and playwright Johann von Goethe, which we studied and read in the Wisdom of the Ages series, which is also on our channel, nicely summed up this ancient teaching with these rhyming words. Only engage, and then the mind grows heated. Great wisdom. Begin it, and then the work will be completed. So once again, only engage, and then the mind grows heated. Begin it, and then the work will be completed. The essence of this widely known 64th verse of the Tao Te Ching is this, Wayne says, every goal is possible from here, right now, in the present moment. And we really have to believe that about ourselves, whether we are wanting health and we think that's impossible, or whether we're wanting wealth and we think that's impossible, or whether we want 1,000 other things, the 10,000 things, ladies and gentlemen, that are really all just one anyway. So it's silly how our duality of the physical and the non-physical, but every goal that you want is possible from here. So believe that about yourselves, ladies and gentlemen, and believe that about your lives, or your children, or your students, or whoever it is that you are trying to, influence and leave legacy with the emphasis on from here. And so this is particularly applicable to problems that seem overwhelming. Specifically, particularly applicable to problems that seem to be overwhelming or big and daunting. When I thought of reading and making a series of all the 81 verses of the Tao Te Ching, I was afraid to start, ladies and gentlemen, because first of all, I didn't know if you could even do that. And second of all, that's a lot of book. I was like, how am I going to do this? And so I just began. All right, we'll start very simply and read quickly. And if you go back to the first video on the series, you'll see what I'm talking about and how different it is from what we do today. And so problems seem overwhelming. When you change the way you think about these problems, which is what this is all about, change our thoughts, change our life, increase the quality, have a better life. Your new and unique perspective, Wayne continues, will cause the enormity of the things before you to diminish. So the giganticness of the problems or the ideas that you're facing will shrink down to more doable sizes, to more accomplishable images, realizing that everything is possible from here. And when we change our perspective and our thoughts on how we see these kind of things, going back to a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, we can begin to change the way that we experience the same things that we were experiencing before, but now we experience them in a whole new way for the very first time. I wish I could remember that quote exactly, but it's like you go on this grand adventure, but you come back to the place to where you started from at the end, but you know it for the very first time because you have this new awareness, this new perspective that you got from your journey. I always loved that because it makes me think of, the hero's journey and whatnot, the Gilgamesh's battle to become immortal, or his journey, or, this path to enlightenment that we all experience in different ways, in our own ways, in our lives. The sage that's being referenced here is very fascinating. When your new and unique perspective will cause the enormity of the things before you to diminish. So the sage does not treasure what is difficult, quote unquote, because he breaks it down into easily managed steps. So therefore, you can imagine someone being like, man, can you believe this great thing, ego-based mind here? Can you believe this great thing that the ego, accomplished? Can you see how wonderful it is? And that's fine, people, great job, good job. And it's good to get a little of that every now and then in life. It's just a sad dog who doesn't wag his own tail every now and then, ladies and gentlemen, but I love that one too. But this idea of being fully dependent on that idea of needing that to feel good. And the sage is the opposite. The sage does not treasure what is difficult because it wasn't difficult at all anyways, even if it seems that way to those of us trapped in the ego mind of the physical world, because he breaks it down into easily managed steps. And with a new awareness, anything that is really difficult is really easy, broken down into all the now, the moments, the steps along the way, the process, rather than the goal. And we say this at the end of each of my videos, but if you never make it to the end, then remember that there is no way to happiness. Happiness is the way. And all the things that we've been telling ourselves, oh, I'll be happy when I get there, become irrelevant when we've created the ability to bring happiness to the journey, the process. The process is the now. And when we get there, if we've always been practicing striving rather than arriving, ladies and gentlemen, then we're never going to even know how to be here now because we never practiced it. And then we'll always be striving and never reaching This goes back to this idea: the sage does not treasure what is difficult because he breaks it down with a new awareness into the process rather than the goal. Rather than taking over and directing, Wayne continues, others, or attempting to do everything himself, the sage or the follower of the Tao finds a way to manage problems before they exist and prior to disorder even coming about. Lao-tzu is encouraging all of us to begin to practice and learn to do the same thing. Re-examine how you view the challenges you face, as well as those of your family, which is always, usually the biggest struggle for us, because those are those that are closest to us. But it changes for each, your family or community and your country. Sense in your heart how easily preventable many of them are when you deal with things before they exist. Now, I'll add there, it takes a certain amount of honesty with the self, which comes from that reflective process of being at rest, which is what the first line was about, which is what is at rest is easily managed. And when you are at rest, you can begin to manage those things that normally pop up before you even realize it. And then you're like, what the heck? Where did this come from? So sense in your heart how easily preventable these things are when you're able to deal with them before they exist, and when you refuse to be attached. So once again, the non-judgment, or the self-awareness that's not lying to yourself, and you're being honest about the things that are struggles and are choices and actions that we all do and make in our life, to begin to refuse to attach to the ideas that are largely responsible for these problems. This is really a new way about thinking. If you've never heard this kind of stuff before, this is like, what? This is actually a thing? This exists? You can really... Is there anybody that does think like this? I mean, these are all the kind of questions that I would ask myself the first time I heard this. Is this real? Is this even real? Well, I tell you, when you begin to practice and research, ladies and gentlemen, and attempt to discover great spiritual teachers and the wisdom of the ages and the wisdom of the Tao, and you begin to discover that this is not only possible for the few and select individuals, but this is possible for almost everyone. And the problem is that nobody cares to take the time to learn that this is a possibility and then put in the diligence and the practice to try to create this in their lives for themselves, because it's not easy. I love the paradoxical statement, the easy way is hard, but the hard way is easy. What does that mean? It's one of my favorite paradoxes, because it really, if you're not like, a deep thinker, then you'll be like, you're saying nonsense here. You're saying the hard way is easy and the easy way is hard. Well, what I'm saying, ladies and gentlemen, is that when we choose the easier choices and don't put in the work and just succumb to society, then that easy way ends up being hard, because things that we deal with are not so great, to where when we take the hard way of, the challenge and the effort and the thinking and the practice and the work and whatever it be, then we experience the easiness of the results of all of those things. And in my perspective, when you're doing the spiritual work, the personal work, the psychological work, and even the physical work, keeping yourself healthy through that, and see, that's even difficult, ladies and gentlemen, to be healthy. It's easy to just eat a bunch of junk food and eat whatever you see in front of you, but then you deal with the hard outcomes later. But it is more difficult to discipline yourself and be a disciple of the way of the Tao, which just means way, but I think it's more of a description of nature and harmony and the alignment of God or the universe with... That's a deeper subject. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, when we take the hard way with this diligence and this discipline, then we experience the easy results. So when you refuse to be attached, Wayne continues, to the ideas that are largely responsible for these problems, you will begin to see how easily preventable they are before they even happen, and have a greater ability to deal with these things before they even exist. There are 3 steps to enlightenment that most people traverse. I did not expect this verse to go this way. This has been one of the best ones, so I hope we're getting a decent amount of views here, because this is important for people. A description of manifesting, being in the moment, and the 3 stages of enlightenment, ladies and gentlemen. What else could you look for? I'm going to pause and write that down. So we're going to see if that fits in the title, because you only get 100 characters in your title, not including, including spaces. So you get a limited amount of room, but if I can, I'm going to call it a description of manifesting, being in the moment, and the 3 steps to 3 steps to enlightenment here. Wayne says the 3 steps to enlightenment that most people traverse are this. Number 1, take notes if you need to. The first way to enlightenment is through suffering. This is when the big problems of your life become so overwhelming that a long period of misery ensues, because you treasure what is difficult to attain. Ultimately, you come to a place where you can look back at those huge obstacles, such as an illness, accidents, addiction, financial loss, children's struggles, or divorce, and see in retrospect that they were actually gifts disguised as problems. And I've heard this actually from many people in my own life, that those challenges that I went through in the past, and this is paraphrasing other people saying this to me, was actually the greatest thing that I went through, because it got me to where I am now. And so if you're going through these challenges, ladies and gentlemen, remember, it will get you to where you are going. And see in retrospect, they were actually gifts disguised as problems. Yet this is not the way of the Tao. This is not how a sage conducts his life. And of course, a sage comes from much practice and much study and much research. So we can't blame anybody for finding enlightenment through suffering, because it may even be the most common way. Number 2, the second way to enlightenment is by being in the present moment. Here, you've moved closer to the Tao, or the way, by asking yourself, when a crisis erupts, what do I have to learn from this experience right now? Which I wish I was there, ladies and gentlemen. This is a difficult level to get to, even for those of us like myself, just studying and trying to implement and practice this stuff in life. There are just certain things about the world, but not the world, but about reality that you experience in your own life that is just part of it. That is tough to sometimes remember to say, what do I have to learn from this experience right now? I know there's a gift hidden for me in this misfortune, and I'll focus on looking for it. While this Tao-centered thinking is Tao-centered thinking, it's not all that Lao-tzu wants to convey in this 64th verse of the Tao Te Ching. So the first stage to enlightenment is through suffering, enlightenment through suffering. The second stage is enlightenment by experiencing crisis, and beginning to have the ability to not experience it as a crisis, but begin to see the lessons in life as things present themselves. The third stage is by getting out in front of your life. This means that you act before difficulties occur. You sense the disorder coming your way, and you manage it in advance. This is the way of the Tao. The small is easily scattered, quote unquote, from this verse, says Lao-tzu. So here you're the acute observer who's totally in tune with nature, with reality, with harmony, with your life. And with foresight, you anticipate an argument and prevent it. You play it out in your mind, and in a split second, you are able to neutralize the negative energy because you are in front of it. This is an even higher level of awareness, ladies and gentlemen. And there's different versions of this, of these stages to enlightenment. Usually the first one is always included, enlightenment through suffering. But so you're able to you become an observer with a new awareness, with foresight, and you can anticipate things that may be happening, and you can sense difficulties and disorder coming your way. And you're able to neutralize this negative energy because you're out in front of it. You've responded by not acting in your former problem-producing ways and are thus harmonized with the Tao, or with the way, with harmony, with nature. At this stage, you prevent difficulties rather than solving them. This verse invites you to master the third or Tao-centered method of being out in front of ourselves by being here in the now and able to do that. And seems paradoxical because getting out in front of things would seem like you're not here now. But ladies and gentlemen, you're using the now, because the now is all there is. So if you're using the now to be in fear or anxiety about the future, it's the same thing as using the now to sense these problems and these difficulties that may occur, and using your unattached awareness to get out in front of them and prevent difficulties from arising. Remembering that a couple weeks ago, anyways, last episode on the series was living without difficulties. And it talked all about this idea. And so these two will go perfectly together, ladies and gentlemen, if you need more of this lesson. And so this verse invites you to master this third Tao Center method, and here are some suggestions for doing just that. Number one, remind yourself of the inherent value in practicing the most enduring line of the Tao Te Ching. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. So forget about the end result, ladies and gentlemen. That's a great lesson. Whatever you're doing in your life, forget about the end result. When you arrive where you thought you wanted to be, you'll just begin a new journey. So enjoy each step along the way and keep in mind that every goal is possible from here and now. Just do one thing, one day at a time. Here's an example of this from my own life, Wayne says. It has now been almost 2 decades since I've had a drink containing alcohol. Had I thought about not drinking for 20 years? Of course he had. It would have been overwhelming and really difficult, and it always is for those of us that struggle with these problems. He says, but yet now I've done it, one day at a time. I can't speak for the next 20 years, but one thing I'm absolutely certain of is that today, and today alone, I will not be taking a drink. One step, one moment, one commitment, one day at a time is the Tao in action. Wow, that's a powerful example, ladies and gentlemen. I love that there. And now number 2 here on how we can begin to master and use this third verse and this Tao-centered method. Third verse, this third method of this 64th verse. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. which is by getting out in front or having the awareness to anticipate. Remember the first two lines that we were talking about. What is at rest is easily managed, and what is not yet manifest is easily prevented. From that first line, what is at rest is easily managed. So become a master anticipator. Thought he was going to say master manifester, huh, ladies and gentlemen? Become a master anticipator. Decide that you are perfectly capable of preventing trouble from cropping up in your life long before it manifests into your material world. Anticipate your own health, for instance. Become conscious of prevention rather than waiting for challenges to materialize. This takes a strong belief, ladies and gentlemen, but it is so true. Become conscious of prevention rather than waiting for challenges to materialize by taking care to be nutritiously sound as a way of life, one moment, one day at a time, such as by taking supplements that remove toxins from your body, cleansing your colon, eating more fruits and vegetables and fewer animal products, exercising and meditating. You're out in front of big problems. You're foreseeing what you need to do while you're capable of scattering the small, managing your health in harmony with the Tao long before there is disorder. Find other areas of your life to practice being a master anticipator. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, we have what each of these chapters ends with, which is why you should get this book for yourself to put it on your shelf. I have it linked in the description below. It says, do the Tao now. Here's a way that we can practically apply this wisdom from the 64th verse of the Tao Te Ching and Lao-tzu and Wayne Dyer and myself to our lives. Take one habit that you'd like to see removed from your life, such as something that you believe constitutes a weakness, or perhaps even an addiction, just for today, and with no promises about tomorrow or the future, take a single step to transcend this habit. So don't smoke or drink caffeine just today. And there's a million different versions of these things. Only eat veggies and fruit just today. And I did that one day. And the next day it was like, wow, you have this crazy energy. I mean, as long as you eat enough and sleep well. But it's amazing, ladies and gentlemen. Speak warmly to hostile neighbors just today. Notice at the end of this one day how you feel, and then, only then, decide if tomorrow morning you wish to continue practicing the wisdom of the Tao Te Ching, which itself was written one word, one day at a time, and has lasted for more than 25 centuries. 2,500 years ago. This wisdom comes to us today. In the Tuesday Tao, ladies and gentlemen. Boom! That's a boom to knowledge, a boom to the wisdom of the Tao. And that was a fantastic verse. One of the better ones. I'm almost glad we waited for that and kind of had some anticipation building up to it. That was a good one. I really enjoyed it, ladies and gentlemen, and I hope you did. And if you did, be sure to consider subscribing. And if you're already subscribed, leave me a comment. Smash the like button. That helps the algorithm show this video to more people that are like-minded. And as well, remember, ladies and gentlemen, to seek to achieve and maintain happiness through enlightenment, through a greater awareness and a greater understanding of not only our reality, but the wisdom of the ages and the mysteries of history. And also remember, ladies and gentlemen, to make happiness the way, because there is no way to happiness. Like we said earlier, the things that we've been striving and never arriving, telling ourselves, oh, I'll be happy when I get there. Those things become irrelevant when we're able to bring happiness to life, bring happiness to the the present moment by being here now, which was today's lesson. And then when we're able to do that, those things we've been telling ourselves become irrelevant, and the entire journey is wonderful. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. I love and appreciate all of you that spend time here with me. And I got a new landscape painting done. I still need to update my Etsy shop, though. I need to go through all my paintings and see what I actually have and what I can list, and, you know, all the little details that goes involved to that. And I'm also going to continue uploading episodes that are previous videos I've done in the past from this series and the Wisdom of the Ages series. And, you know, all the videos that I've done on this channel into an audio/video podcast that will be on Spotify and other podcast platforms. And I will have those linked in the description below in the future as well. Probably not yet in this video, but coming soon, ladies and gentlemen, as well. I have a link to the book and C60 Purple Power, the most powerful antioxidant known to man. If you don't know what C60 is, you need to look it up. You need to look it up, ladies and gentlemen, because that's something we all need to know. Give yourself the gift of health. All right. Love you, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you tomorrow on Wednesday Wisdom, where we'll be diving deeper into the lost wisdom of the pharaohs and the Hermetica. All right. Love you, ladies and gentlemen.